Welcome to Series 5 of the Lassie Lounge podcast. Join me, Katie Taylor, as we talk balancing hormones, busting myths, breaking taboos, boosting libidos, and bolstering confidence. Why not grab a coffee, take a seat, or go for a walk and join us in the Lassie Lounge as we chat all things midlife, menopause, and beyond. With thanks to our friends at Youth and Earth for making this podcast possible. Why is resistance training so important as we age, and how can we fit it into our busy lives? In today's episode, we're talking to personal trainer Kate Oakley about how we can increase strength and protect our bones and joints in midlife, as well as finding ways to fit it into our day, even if you only have 5 minutes to spare. We'll find out how the right kind of training can do more than just help you get through the challenges that come with menopause, but also be empowering and totally change your outlook on life. Kate is the founder of Your Future Fit. She's always loved fitness and training, but it was a passion she only turned into a career at the age of 50 after a 25-year career in HR to help peri and postmenopausal women who were going through similar challenges to her. As a fully qualified personal trainer, Kate focuses on encouraging women to start with small habit changes to their exercise, gradually building up the consistency that is sustainable for their future. So welcome, Kate. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, I just wanted to start by asking you, how does the way we used to work before we were, say, 40 differ from how we should possibly be doing things, post 40? And why do you think we need to sort of change things up a bit?
Well, I get asked that question a lot, actually, Casey. So women will message me and say, why do I need to change what I'm doing? It doesn't feel right anymore. I feel that I'm one step away from an injury, or two, I'm not doing anything different, but yet my weight has changed. So weight's crept on. What's going on? Why did something that used to work for me no longer work for me? And I certainly experienced that myself. So I used to love HIIT, high intensity workouts. And then I can now look back and think it was when I hit perimenopause, they just started to feel too frenetic, too fast paced, too kind of manic. So women will say, I just can't jump around anymore. I can't be in that space. I think we're just feeling, if we think now, post 40, our muscle mass is declining. We're feeling less strong naturally through no fault of our own. Our posture is affected, our balance is affected. Again, this is not through anyone's fault. And I think women can be quite hard on themselves and think it's all my fault. I can't do what I used to do. But with our hormones changing, and I'm sure we'll come on to that, it's something we have to just think this is the way it is, but what changes do we need to make? And so I experienced firsthand that I needed to stop doing the HIIT exercise and move into resistance training. Yes, keep some cardio in there. Yes, if you can, keep some restorative exercise in there. So something for agility, flexibility, calmness, like yoga. But resistance training is the big shift that we need to make once we're kind of into our 40s and into perimenopause. It's a game changer.
Yeah, and it's funny, I feel like there's been a lot more sort of talk and awareness of resistance training, especially in recent years, especially because of the benefits perhaps in midlife that you've talked about versus sort of other types of exercise. So what is resistance training and why is it so important for us in midlife?
Yeah, it's got that name, hasn't it? I don't think I even knew what the name was or meant when I was in my 20s and 30s. It just wasn't a thing, was it? You didn't have to think about it. And you're right, it is. We are hearing more about it, but then I think it can be a bit scary because it's also called strength training. So those two terms mean the same thing, but strength training, I don't know about you, but before I became a personal trainer and before I knew what it was, certainly strength training to me meant going to the gym, great big heavy barbells like you see the men doing in kind of weightlifting competitions, and it isn't that. If you really just bring it down, resistance training means working the bones against a resistance, such as your own body weight or resistance bands or dumbbells, can just be in your own living room or your garden. That's it. And we just need to demystify it a little bit and say that's all it is. So we need to be working those bones against that resistance, because unfortunately they're starting to break down faster than they're repairing, and resistance training is what can change that.
And you say breakdown. Is that due to our hormones, or is that just to aging in general?
Well, there's quite a lot going on. There's a bit of a mix, as we know, we're in it. So there's two key things going on once you kind of hit perimenopause. So first of all, you've got the loss of muscle mass going on, which is happening from after 30. We're losing about 3 to 5% per decade anyway. Then with our declining testosterone, that starts to accelerate. So you've got that decline in muscle mass, so you're feeling less strong. Then you've got the situation with declining estrogen, which is the key hormone responsible for maintaining and building bone density. So that's what, with the declining estrogen, the bone density is decreasing and you're more likely to get a fracture. And this was a big shock to me when I found this out. But then you start to put the pieces together, that most research points to 1 in 3 women over the age of 50 having a fracture. I was horrified by that. But then you think, hang on, my mother-in-law, oh yeah, then my aunt, yeah, hip fracture, yeah, oh, hip replacement. And you start to kind of do a tally of that older generation, so the one above us, and you think, oh yeah, that does play out actually. Probably is 1 in, I'd actually say with my experience, 1 in 2 to 1 in 3. But it's not all doom and gloom. That's the good bit. The fact that people are talking more about resistance training now, I'm really hopeful that our generation, that statistic is going to be completely different, because we are bringing in strength training. And I'm so glad you've invited me on, and we're going to talk about it, because I'm passionate about raising awareness, and in a way that isn't terrifying and has people thinking, oh my God, but I'm never going to be a gym bunny, with the weights. You don't need to be. There's so much we can do.
Absolutely. And actually, if for anyone listening, there's another episode on this series where we actually talk about osteoporosis, and so you can have a listen to that, because that will go into a lot more detail onto what happens to our bones as we age. But let's have a look at resistance training. You're so right. When someone first said to me, oh, you need to be weightlifting, I was like, oh, I don't want to be one of those like bodybuilders. And oh God, there's no way I can lift some massive dumbbell. But obviously I now know, after from the work I've been doing and talking to people like you, that it's just not that. So, I mean, let's first of all look at the benefits. What are some of the benefits of doing this?
Well, first, but 2 benefits are to improve that muscle mass. So that's what, when people are thinking, well, what do you mean by muscle mass? When people start to describe themselves as going soft, that's something I hear a lot. I've gone all soft. I'm wobbly, which I don't like to hear women describe themselves as wobbly, but those are the words that people message me about and clients speak to me about. And we do just feel less able to do some of the functional things in our daily lives. Pick up the shopping bags, do the gardening, lift the heavy bags of compost, put those heavy things away in cupboards, all that kind of thing, because we have got that declining muscle mass. So resistance training, benefit number 1 is you're going to create that lean muscle. You are going to create that muscle, and it is absolutely doable. So I'd love to go into, debunk that myth in a minute. Second is that you can work on your bone health. So it's not a case of once you reach a point, let's say that stage before osteoporosis, like osteopenia, you can work on that bone health. It's not, once you reach that, well, too late, not worth bothering with. You can. So improve your bone health, create that lean muscle mass. And then also research points to resistance training helping with some of the menopausal symptoms, such as hot flushes, night sweats, migraines. And that's migraines, particularly. I've had a few clients recently who used to suffer from migraines. And I didn't want to set their expectations too high, but I'm pleased to say that they literally barely ever have one now. And they were a regular occurrence before. So even just park the research, I'm seeing it play out in front of my own eyes that it's helping with those symptoms. And then the other benefit is the endorphins and the serotonin that we hear so much about. Other kind of exercise. I think people used to think you can only get that kind of exercise high from cardio, from running, from something that really gets that heart pumping. It isn't the case. Resistance training really can have that impact. And I really see it make a huge change to women's self-esteem in menopause, which, let's face it, I'm sure you talk to so many more women than me, Katie, but self-esteem can really take a knock, can't it, once you reach this life stage. And resistance training, like I wish people could hear it from more people other than just personal trainers, because when clients say, "Oh my God, I now feel more able to deal with the blows that life has to, throw down on me. I feel I can conquer the world," one client said. And you're thinking, "Oh my God, this is amazing." I think it's like a little superpower.
Yeah.
Because you start, and you can just start small, and then you'll start to just notice that you feel just a little bit stronger and a little bit stronger. And that is such an empowering feeling. And it doesn't matter whether that means you're lifting weights a fraction of the size of woman A, B, or C. Let's not compare ourselves to other women. It's about you feeling that you're stronger than you were. So I really see a big impact on that, on mental health, positive outlook, just feeling strong physically, impacting strength mentally.
100%. And actually, I've learned the hard way myself. Yeah, as you said, in the sort of 80s, we were all busy doing step aerobics, or sort of
Yeah.
we had to be in the gym. And I think, and I tried running and it wasn't for me. And I think I've got to this stage in my life where I just need to do sort of calmer things. And actually, to even, I think lockdown was quite good for a lot of us because it forced us to look at what we could do in a small space at home. And for me personally, I've said it many times before, I end up doing a little routine in my bedroom every other day, and that, including weights. And that, and I feel, as you say, I feel so much better. And you touched on myths, and there's so many myths and misconception that, we both, I'm sure, hear all the time. And one of them is that, that I always feel very sorry for women who either can't or don't want to take HRT. And there's the mantra that, you have to take HRT, otherwise you're going to get osteoporosis. And so there's a lot of fear for the community that just can't or don't want to. So, and I know there is a myth around there, although HRT is great and it was the answer for my problems. Strength training is equally as important, isn't it, whether you're on HRT or not, for bone strength?
Absolutely. And equally, if you're not able to take HRT or don't want to, I think it's important to know that HRT isn't the golden answer to everything either. So it's not, well, my life would look completely different if I took it. If you take HRT but don't do the strength training and don't look after your stress levels and don't eat well and look after nutrition, and we all have to look at all of these different things, don't we, to thrive in this life stage. It's just not as simple as that kind of, take the HRT and job done. But so anyone who can't take HRT, who doesn't want to, I really would say, please start the strength training. You will see a difference. You will feel different. And if that even sounds too scary, too overwhelming, I'd say start with walking.
Yeah.
Just start with walking. Start from there. Um, and even then build that up, because there's so much overwhelming information out there. You hear these great big numbers, and that's one of the myths that I would like to debunk, which is that for you to make any impact on your health, you need to be doing 45-minute workouts 3-4 times a week. You need to be doing 10,000 steps a day minimum. If you're not anywhere near that, that sounds so unreachable, so unachievable, that I totally understand why you think, well, I'm never going to be that person, so I'm not going to bother. I really get that. And then that doesn't help the self-esteem and the mental health. I mean, you've just said, Katie, I think you've illustrated it really well. Just, being in your bedroom every second day. It could just be a simple case of doing a bit of this and a bit of that before you get in the shower in the morning. That's strength training. That's resistance training. You don't have to even be in workout gear. You could just do it in your pajamas, or if you're working from home, which luckily people still do, and you're in kind of, loose fitting clothes rather than a, smart blouse and skirt, you can do it in your clothes when you've got, I don't know, a 5-minute break.
Absolutely. And I think, we're so time poor, aren't we? I mean, I think, I sit here 24/7 at my desk, and I'm very conscious that I'm not walking around nearly as much. And so, are there ways that we can kind of get on, I suppose, with our exercise quickly? I mean, are there shorter, sort of more focused workouts that we can all do, which are possibly still as beneficial as, say, doing an hour's, full body workout? And perhaps you can give some examples of what we could all do easily at home.
Sure. I mean, first off, I would say, I'm a personal trainer. It's my job. I need to be strong and fit and healthy, even if I didn't want to be. And I never do an hour ever. So you just don't need to do. You don't need to do that. And and I'm lean, and I have got lean muscle mass. I've got muscle definition. An hour. I'm sorry, I don't have an hour. I just don't have an hour, and I'd find it boring. Um, so you just don't need to be doing 45 minutes that many times a week. If you want to reach a certain level, maybe. But there are definitely ways that you can find time that you didn't even realize was free. So my top example would be when you're brushing your teeth. And that's 2 minutes, morning and night. Well, I don't know about you, but I find it really boring brushing my teeth. I'm quite impatient. I'm not a sit still kind of person, as you can probably gather. Um, I find it boring. So you can do something like a wall sit, where you take your lower back against the wall, almost as if you're sitting on a chair, an imaginary chair, but using the wall as the back part of your chair. And that will work the front of your thighs or your quads, and just try and hold that for as many seconds as you can while you're brushing your teeth. Or you could do some body weight squats while you're brushing your teeth. If you did that twice a day, that's 28 minutes a week. That's a full workout. 28 minutes a week, and you didn't have to find any more time. So right there, I'd say if someone says, I've got no time to do anything, I'm like, do you brush your teeth? Well, yes. Okay, then you've definitely got 28 minutes. So there's 28 minutes right there. And then when the ads come on TV, you can drop to the floor, try and do some sit-ups, some press-ups against the sofa, something like that. Lunge across your living room when you go and put the kettle on. All these little things do add up. Things like walking up the escalator. So I live in London, a lot of escalators for the tube and for the trains. I never stand still on an escalator, because there's an opportunity for me right there to do a couple of minutes exercise, then another couple of minutes, and that all counts. I always kind of think of it going in the bank, going in the kind of the exercise bank across the week. Maybe you've only done one workout, but if you add your bits and bobs when you're brushing your teeth, going up the escalator, walking the long way round back to the car with that bag of compost at the garden centre, all those little bits add up, and they do make a difference. I think that's a myth, that they're not going to make a difference. So you think, well, why bother? I've only got 10 minutes today, so what's the point? And that's why I share these short workouts on my Instagram, 10, 12 minutes long, because everyone can find 10 minutes, really. If we scroll through Instagram, which I think we all do, or Facebook, we can find 10 minutes. And the way I would try and urge people to look at it is, if you think about how many times in the last month you've thought to yourself, I've got 10 minutes, that's all I've got, so it's not worth bothering with. Multiply that across the month. So let's say that's 7 or 8 times. You're heading towards an hour and a half there. Multiply that across the months, and it's going to add up into hours and hours and hours of exercise. So those 10 minutes are absolutely worth bothering with. Sold?
I'm very sold, and I love that. That works very well with my life, because I just think I'm sure a lot of people like me have just kind of grown up with that idea that you've got to do minimum an hour 3 times a week. And actually, I'm gonna do my teeth tonight squatting, and I'll report back. But what about weights? I mean, if you've never used weights before, are you ever too old? And also, what size weights? I mean, should we just be looking at sort of a couple of kilos, or what would you recommend?
So I get lots of questions on when people see my workouts on Instagram. I'll get a lot of women saying, "What weights have you got in that video?" And I will say that's not entirely relevant what weights I've got, because that's not you. So we are all unique in terms of the size of weights. So I'll answer that bit first. So size of weights is going to depend on your starting point. So but I can be kind of give a general rule of thumb. And without assessing someone, I would advise a pair of 3 kgs for upper body and a pair of 5 kgs for lower body as a starting point. Maybe if the threes are too heavy, start with twos. But it can be very common for women to say, "Oh yeah, I've definitely got dumbbells." And then I say, "What weight?" And they say, "Oh, I've got a pair of 0.5s and a pair of ones." And I do think that's not going to be quite working you hard enough in time. If you're consistent with these little 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there, quite quickly, they're going to be too light. So I would say go a bit heavier, and you'll have to do less. I mean, I'm all about the doing less, really, and to also try and do it well, which is why I try and focus on technique a lot. Because I don't know about you, but I do know some fellow midlife women who say, "I don't understand. I'm in the gym 3 times a week for an hour. Nothing's happening. Nothing's changing. I feel exactly the same as I did before I started." And that's maybe because they've not had their program changed for 5 years. Maybe because they're watching telly on the treadmill and not really focused on what they're doing. And maybe because they're doing the exercises without the correct technique. So I'd say do go heavy enough. And you want to be thinking, let's say, um, a bicep curl, if anybody knows what that is. Hopefully they do. So just lifting the weights, one in each hand, up to work the biceps, so the muscle at the front of the arm. You want to be aiming for, let's say, 12 repetitions of that, with the 11th and 12th being really tough. You might be having to pull a few ugly faces. You might be needing to grunt. If you want to swear, have a swear. But if you can just have a chat to your family about, all right, so what's everyone fancy for dinner tonight? I was thinking, then you're not working hard enough, and you'll need to do more. So my advice is to do a shorter workout, but really work for it in the time you've got, and that will be effective. So 3s and 5s would be a good starting point. Make sure you're struggling, finding it really hard by that sort of 11th and 12th rep. Then you'll know the weight's heavy enough for you. And is it too late to start in your 60s? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I do remember a man telling me when I said I was thinking of retraining, because I was in HR for 25 years. And then I said to him I was thinking of retraining, and he runs a gym. And he said, "Oh, you sure about that? Don't you want to do something a bit more gentle? Like maybe become a yoga teacher instead?" And I thought, well, for a moment I had a flicker of self-doubt. And then now I think he was so wrong, absolutely wrong. So we're really capable. I'm stronger than I've ever been. 53 in July, and I'm stronger than I've ever been. And if you're 63 and listening to this, you absolutely still go for it. I mean, there's some great women on Instagram who are in their 70s and they are super strong. Have you seen them? There's some great accounts.
Yeah, I used to work out with a lady who's when I was about 30, who then she was about 65, and I thought she was amazing. She's now 85 and she's still doing the splits and weight training.
Brilliant.
She's incredible. So you're never too old, and I keep telling my mum that. And actually it's funny because I look at my parents who are in their mid 80s, and they've every day for as long as I can remember gone to walk on their local sort of area, green space. I mean, they're still walking 2 hours a day, and that's all they do. But actually, just the fact that they've done that, they don't
Yeah.
realize that that's why they can continue to do that. So,
Yes.
as
Yeah.
you say, at the bare minimum, walking is just
Walking is underrated. I do think it is. My mother-in-law's the same. She's out walking for that long a day too. And I think because she's same as you, because she's been walking for years and years, that's why she's still able to do that now in her mid 80s. And I think we all want to be that person, don't we? That we're still able to go out and walk and look after ourselves, which is what they're doing. So I mean, as you say, though, if you're heading towards 80, it might be just walking. If you are in your 70s, then what I just said about the 3s and the 5 kgs going to be too heavy. But so I'm sort of looking more at the 40s to 65 age for those size weights. But seek advice anyway. Seek advice. You know, if anyone's listening and they're in that age, they can message me.
okay, absolutely. Now, look, we briefly talked about, that obviously, whether you're on HRT or not, exercise is still, incredibly important and beneficial. Is resistance training enough in isolation to help everything else that you were talking about? So stress, sleeping better, and I suppose the most important thing is the fuel we put in our bodies. What sort of nutrition should we be changing up the way we eat to support ourselves if we're doing more resistance training?
Good question. Um, so the first part of that, is it enough in isolation? I think I would answer that it, depending on your starting point, if at the moment you are struggling and you're struggling to exercise, sleep well, manage your stress, eat the nutritious, nourishing foods that you know you should, then I'm going to say that resistance training, let's just start with one of those elements. Because to ask someone who is struggling to look at all of those and is finding that they are stressed, they're overwhelmed with work or aging parents, and it can just be too much. So when I work with clients over 12 weeks, I'll pick small things that we can build on, because I think that's where we go wrong too, is we just try to change everything. And sometimes we can have these moments. I don't know, we've just read a great self-help book, or we've been on a retreat weekend, or someone's given us some great advice, and we go, right, I'm going to start resistance training. I'm going to eat 100 grams of protein a day. I'm going to sleep 8 hours a day. I'm going to change my job. And whoa. We need to set ourselves up for success. So I would say, yes, let's just start with resistance training then. Let's start. It is definitely going to have an impact. Do I think it's going to solve everything if you've got all those elements that need addressing? I'll be honest and say, no, I don't think it is. I think it's important in midlife to look at the whole picture. So let's say me as a personal trainer, clearly I'm doing plenty of resistance training, but I have to work on my stress. So I do breath work to work on mine. Meditation isn't really my thing. Breath practice works for me. I have to make sure that I'm sleeping enough and the quality of my sleep is good. I have to make sure I'm eating well. I'll come back to that question. Because if I don't look at those bits of the jigsaw as well, it's the strength work is not enough on its own. However, as a place to start, yes, get going, just start small and build on the successes. And I think once you start with the strength training, it can be a bit more motivating then to make some of the other changes. You feel a bit more inclined to then look at your nutrition and think, well, I'm doing so well with the exercise. Wouldn't it be a shame to put junk in my body and not fuel myself and eat nourishing foods so that the exercise, those two pieces of the jigsaw join together. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I always feel that whichever way I start, whether I look at my diet first and think I need to be eating better, or if I just start exercising, it does have a knock-on effect on everything else. And I think you've kind of answered, that question beautifully, that I think once you start making positive changes, life does seem to feel a little bit better and easier, because we all know the negative impact of having, say, too much sugar on your brain. That can
Mhm.
put you in a downward spiral, and then you feel a bit depressed, and then who wants to work out when you're feeling miserable? So you're absolutely right. You find possibly what's the easiest thing for me to tweak right here right now, and hope it
Yeah.
has that knock on effect. So look, we've only got a few more minutes, but I really want to ask you about nutrition. Tell me, what is there anything we should be doing, differently to make sure that we're really nourishing our bodies when we are using resistance training?
Well, it's protein, protein, protein. I bang on about protein. So it probably gets very boring for my clients. I actually ask clients to track what they're eating for a few weeks so I can see what's going on. And I would say the average so far across the last 2 years is about 40 grams a day. I would ask that I try and get clients up to 80 to 100 grams a day in small increments. So we do need to be eating more protein to be building the lean muscle. And it also means that you feel fuller, women have more energy on it. And actually making the change to more protein, I think women, you'll find that you just feel better for it. And that doesn't mean at the expense of other foods. I also know women who say, I don't eat any carbs now, no carbs. And we need carbs to fuel us. And I think that's our age group a little bit, that we were brought up, weren't we, in this kind of weight loss era of just have a bowl of soup for lunch. That's just not enough to sustain you, really. A bowl of soup with no, and I'm talking about good carbs. So whole foods, so like brown rice. If you're going to I eat whole wheat pasta if I'm going to eat pasta. So I completely try and eliminate all of the white um kind of refined carbs. So protein, you'll hear a rule of thumb, 1 gram for every kilogram that you weigh. um that's I would say that's a starting point. It depends how much you weigh, doesn't it? If you only weigh 50 kilos, or you're quite petite, I don't think that's enough. So I would, yeah, head up towards 80 to 100. And that's actually more doable than you think. So because my perimenopausal memory brain is dreadful, I wrote down a couple of the things because I can never remember, but one chicken breast is 35 grams. That's a lot. A mackerel fillet, 20 grams, 3 large eggs. You should have an omelette for lunch. You're getting 18 grams of protein. I changed my breakfast. That's a really quick way to change how much protein you have a day. I used to be a porridge person, and now Greek yogurt with berries. So I'm getting my fiber in, because that's another key thing. And so Greek yogurt, 18 grams for a small pot of Greek yogurt. So protein and then fiber, around 30 grams a day. I think we're better generally at fiber, because I think most of us know we should be eating, our fruits and our vegetables, and I think even the good fats. I think there's been a lot of education on that, so people understand about the good fats, the avocado and nuts. So those are my two big things. I mean, but protein is the one that I think people just aren't aware enough of, and it is quite easy to tweak it
What
and
what
get that
what,
number up.
what do you think about protein powders? So for people who are perhaps really busy and on the run, are protein shakes sort of worth making and having and taking to work or in the
I
car?
think so. I think so. I know some nutritionists, some might say no. I don't, of course, we'd rather things came from real food, non-processed, real food, but that's not always possible. Certainly, I use a protein powder. There are lots of good brands out there. Form is a good one and recommended by nutritionists. And you can add you can add your flax seeds into that. chia seeds. I use almond milk. I put oats in there for kind of a bit of bulk. And I would probably say that every second day or every third day, I'm using protein pancakes for breakfast. They taste just as the same as normal ones with the vanilla protein. So yes, I do think so. Especially vegetarians, it's harder to get the protein amount up as a vegetarian. If I think I'm struggling, chicken, prawns, mackerel, tuna, it's quite easy for someone who eats meat and fish to get to hit the right amounts. But as a vegetarian, yeah, trickier. So, do you like them? Do you have one?
Well, my boys, I mean, I've got 4 kids, and the 3 teenage boys, or the sort of in their 20s, they swear by them. But I think that I don't think they eat as much chicken and fish as I would like them to. So they sort of add that on, and that's fine. I think they're always on the move, so it's probably quite helpful for them. But I've sort of tried it. I actually quite like them, so
I quite like them
I'm
too.
asking for a friend.
Yeah, I quite like the flavour. Yeah, I quite like the chalky flavour. Some are a bit too chalky. So if you can get little taster sachets, then that's a good idea to make sure you like it before you pay for a great big container, because they can be a bit expensive. That's the
Yeah,
only thing I'd say too.
yeah, I agree. All right, well, look, I would love to keep chatting, but I must let you go. But if anyone wants to find out more about you, Kate, you're at yourfuturefit.com, is that right?
Yes, yourfuturefit.com is my website, and I'm on Instagram at yourfuturefit.
Perfect. And we'll put all that in the show notes anyway. And obviously, if anyone has any questions about anything we've been chatting about today, please do reach out to Kate, and I'm sure
Yes, please do.
yeah. All
Thanks
right.
for having me.
Thanks so much for sharing your wisdom with us all. Take care.
Thanks, Katie.
Thanks for listening to the Latte Lounge podcast. Please subscribe wherever you're listening so you don't miss our next episode. For more support with all things menopause and midlife, head to our website, lattelounge.co.uk, and search for the Latte Lounge group on Facebook. This podcast was sponsored by Youth and Earth and produced by Emily Crosby Media.